Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Well. My Lord, on today, it is Thursday, June 12th, 2025. Welcome to Mornings with Marvel, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. It is Love is Thursday. Good morning to each and every one of you. Thank you for joining us as usual. You see my new A.Lawful Truth mug? Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that, Black Jesus. So we're creating the stuff so that we can get it out to you guys. So much. We have an incredible show today. A woman by the name of Nay Andrews is going to join us, Cherie and I, for the Love Is segment. And she was a preacher's kid. Is a preacher's kid, and I'm just letting you know now, warning you, giving you fair warning, that this is going to be a subject matter that I need you to open your ears. I need you to take notes. We're going to uncover some things that we just always kept secrets. And so the Love Is segment is really a part about finding love, within our communities. What does that look like? How do we navigate? And oftentimes children of preachers, children of really famous people, children of folks who are public officials find themselves in a quandary. They can't live normal lives like everyone else. So I just informed Cherie who we were going to have. She's like, oh, wow. So, I meant to let her know earlier this week, but let me tell you, this entire week of programming has just been filled with great stuff. I'm going to keep you updated with Joanna Jane and what's happened with the squatters in her house and her subsequently getting them out. Good morning, Debbie Womack. Good morning. And on top of all of that, we have what looks like martial law coming into our country. Within our country, not coming into, within our country. You see all the protests that are happening out there. And I don't blame people for not wanting to talk about it. Folks are being really quiet online, but I need you to know, though, that the president's birthday is actually on Saturday. And with everything that has been going on and the National Guard being called out to different states right now, even if they're not asking for it, Nebraska, Chicago, Texas governor decided he was going to call out the National Guard himself before anything happens there. And right now, Keisha Hudson, who is the chief defender of the Defenders Association of Philadelphia, says that we are to expect ICE here, and the Defenders Association in Philadelphia is absolutely ready to deal with them. There were 7 to 15 people arrested in Philadelphia for protesting in front of the detention center there. She got them all sent home without being charged. She was like, this is still Philly. We're still running on something else here. The Constitution. That's what we're doing. So be prepared. I'm asking those of you who are traveling today for this upcoming weekend, for the next few days, be very mindful. I ran into some demonstrations in Philly on Wednesday. Yesterday was Wednesday, Tuesday. So just be aware of what's going on around you. Before we get our Love Is segment started, a couple of things happened this morning. There was a flight, an Boeing 787 flight that crashed, an India airline that crashed. And immediately I began doing my research because something clicked in my brain. I was like, this is the Boeing 787 Dreamliner that had so much trouble that they were grounded. And here we go, 200 and something people on board. They're all feared dead, and that's where we are with that. And I just, so much is going on. The tensions between Israel and Iran has grown in ways that is frightening to all of us. And if you notice, everything is happening at the same time. So where do we put our attention? Where do we put them? Good morning, Winetta, Jana, Debbie, and Tria. Good morning to all of you. I'm assuming you all can hear me well because this episode of Love Is going to be a doozy. Now listen, I will not be on the air tomorrow. I am committed to a huge project that starts today that runs into all day tomorrow until tomorrow evening. And so I need you all to don't look for me tomorrow morning. I will not be on the air. Now, I have a question for all of you. What is happening when you can't wear lotion, wear deodorant, can't put any perfumes on? What does that mean for a woman when she can't wear lotion, can't wear deodorant, can't put any perfume or oils on? What does that mean? Just tell them over, because whoo, Lord have mercy. Let me see what's happening over here, and then I'll talk to you. Roslyn, good morning, darling. I see all of you. Tammy, Nakia, Alexandra, Beatrice, two, good morning. Bobby, good morning. Monica, good morning. Jasenia, Beatrice, Viola. Yeah, Monica, prayers really do, really, prayers. It is just the things that are going on out here right now. I just don't even know where we can do this. Hold on one second. Somebody said that's a lot to pray for. The 25-year-old, and I'm looking for him. Hold on, because I just want to make sure that I get this straight. Zach. The guy that was fighting at the Democratic Party, the young one, Zach, and I can't remember his last name. This was just breaking news, so I don't have it. And if Mr. Sanders, if you're listening, send me that, please. He left the Democratic National Party at the national level, and while others might be cheering that he's gone, remember they took away the leadership role from him and Malcolm Kenyatta because someone complained that the way they got their roles as vice president at the national level was not legal, a woman. So what's happening now is that, let me see. What's happening now is that he's walking away, but he's walking away, which is going to cause a lot of problems, I think, for the party, because he has $20-something million, and he's going to do what he needs to do to try and get the Democratic Party on an even keel. He says because he's still gatekeeping and making sure that the same old people get into office, and he's just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Good morning, Ken July. Good morning. Thank you, David Hogg. Thank you, Andrea Marvin Manley. Why did I say Zach? Lord Jesus, I can't. I'm barely awake. So today is mammogram day for me. I have to go until this afternoon before I get my mammogram, but I have two main appointments, like two huge things I have to do in the morning. I have no deodorant on. I have no oils, no body butter, no anything. And so I'm going to test that goat theory. By the time I go to get my mammogram this afternoon, will not be able to come back home to take a shower. So I gotta do what I gotta do. So if you are someone who, well, if you're a woman over the age of 35, 40, and you have not had a mammogram, please go get one done, and you need to have one done every year. So there we are with that. I think it's David Hogg, Andrea. Somebody left the Democratic Party. We'll see. I'll get to it. Remember, I will not be on the air tomorrow morning. Will not be on the air. Don't look for me. Don't ask for me, because I literally have a major project that I'm working on starting today. Let me cover a little bit of news before Cherie and I comes on. Okay. There's a No Kings protest planned in Philadelphia on June 14th, same day as Army Parade in D.C. and Trump's birthday. On Saturday, cities across the United States are planning to host David Hogg. Thank you. No Kings Day events as part of a coordinated protest against the Trump administration, billed as a nationwide day of defiance. Organizing materials for No Kings Day says the protests are an opportunity for Americans to stand up together against cruelty, corruption, and authoritarianism. The upcoming protests follow a series of nationwide rallies organized in April by Hands Off and the 50-50 movement. More than 1,000 people gathered in Old City on April 19th to denounce what they considered an anti-democratic policies by the White House. So this was written by CBS News. The Department of Homeland Security has asked the Pentagon for help in transporting weapons from Fort Benning in Georgia and another site in Wyoming to Los Angeles, where its immigration crackdown has become increasingly militarized. The request came Monday after President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered thousands of National Guard troops and 700 active duty Marines to Los Angeles over the objection of California Governor Gavin Newsom. Trump and Hegseth said the troops are needed to restore order, protect federal buildings, and law enforcement officials arresting and deporting migrants in the United States illegally. 15 people were arrested in Philadelphia amid growing nationwide protests against the Trump administration mass deportation policies. A Center City demonstration on Tuesday ended with 15 arrests and multiple injuries involving police and protesters. Around 200 people had gathered and blocked traffic outside of Philadelphia's Federal Department of Corrections, and that's where my black behind ended up. I was like, "Ooh, what am I getting?" I made a quick left. It was crazy out there. So there's that. We're having that right now. So be careful for the next few days, please, and stay inside if you don't have to be out there. All right. Let's see. Let me let Cherie in. Good morning, my darling. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Just hanging and banging. You know, a lot of long, full day. I haven't had a chance to talk to you.
Yeah, you haven't.
You are so rotten, so spoiled, so only childish.
I am. I own
Wait
that.
and wait, and you're not even ashamed. You're like, I cannot with you. At least you're honest, right? What's going on, darling? Before Nate comes on, what's going on with you?
To thyself be true. Just the normal stuff. I try to. And good morning, everyone. Is everyone out there yet?
Yes, they are
talking. It is so interesting how everything related to Black anything ends up being a conversation around men. It finds a way to either bash men or vilify marriage.
Yes.
In some capacity. And I'm just trying to figure out where these people are that have zero reference to anything positive about men or marriage. And it's just very, 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 very interesting.
This sounds like you got a whole story, Cherie. So what the hell? What's going on?
So, that movie Straw came out.
Yes.
Harry's movie.
Uh-huh.
And from that came all these conversations around men, and one person said, well, if she was married, it'd be different. Then they attacked her. What would a husband have done? It's just very interesting, our disposition, and I mean our by culture, our Black people, community, Black women, or whatever, where it seems like our default is so quickly to either bash men or vilify the sanctity of marriage. And I'm just trying, I try to have conversations with people because I really want to understand. It's hard to have it in social media settings because you're not talking, you don't hear the voice and inflection and things like that. I had someone tell me I was delusional and I'm living in some fantasy land. I was like,
and why are you delusional?
Because I am a proponent and advocate for, one, Black men, two, Black marriages.
Yes.
I see too many of them that are amazing. I really do. And always have, even when I wasn't in one.
Right.
So it's not like I got married and I got, a different type of religion around marriage. I've always seen really great married couples and have been happy that they've been part of my village. Yes. Do I have friends that have been divorced? I absolutely do. But I have way more that are married. And from what I can tell, happily married, because they're people that I'm pretty close with, than I do having really, really bad and negative experiences. I've had negative experiences. Obviously, I talk about it in my book, but there's parts of my negative experiences that I had to grow.
Right.
And so I'm just, sometimes I'm disheartened because marriage is such an amazing and beautiful thing. And there is value in it. And I mean, people are all the way down to why get married? You get way more social services. I mean, I guess if you think like that, then we're just not even in the same.
Yeah.
Our thought processes aren't even the
Yeah.
same,
Yeah.
but it challenges me because as a people, I always want us to be moving forward and growing. And you kind of, maybe I insulate myself from certain thought processes or mindsets, and then you're kind of out in the social media world where anyone can come in your space, and you just see how we have so far to go.
Or as you grew, as you aged, you matured and grew to a place where the things that often some people are still talking about is not even on your radar anymore, right?
That's
That
true
that
too.
that was what happened with me with the movie Straw. I got 5 minutes in and I was like, yeah, I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch it. It was too devastating. It put black women in such a light. Like we're the only ones that experience poverty. But the other thing that and I mean, I literally got 5 minutes in. She was walking the baby out the house. And I was like, I can't. When I saw her bathing the baby in the bathtub, and the bathtub was filled with all this black mold and grunge all over it, and they were just trying to figure it out, and the landlord was cussing her out, and to pay the rent. That's where I stopped. I said, okay.
Mm-hmm. And I hadn't even seen it
Ooh,
at the time.
I literally made 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I cannot stand to see us. And let me be clear. I know what I saw, the 5 minutes that I saw, continues to happen in society today. That to be poor is just one of the most devastating things, right? It is expensive to be poor. Everything costs more. Your credit card is 29 point something percent interest, and you only get a $300 balance. You understand what I'm saying? Like to not
Right.
have a good credit score, to not be able to make enough money to live in a place where you and your children can feel secure. All those things.
Even in my space, we've had to encourage people to get the proper type of bank accounts because we do direct deposit, and
Right.
we are on a payroll system that we will only do direct deposit. I do not want you going to a check cashing place. Not that
Right.
I don't, but I'm encouraging you not to because of how expensive that is. And now it just so happens that we're on a platform where it only does direct deposit to certain types of accounts. So people have had to get a bank account, and so yes, I'm not oblivious to it, and I know it exists, but I'm also not living in some alternate reality either.
Right.
you know
Right.
and the fact that maybe people think that they can't achieve or get to whatever reality they believe I'm living, or the reality that they think that I'm in some fantasy land. The thought, I guess, that is probably the
Well, could it
devastating,
but could it be because of
that
what
people
you
think that
post
they
about
can.
being able to travel? You're living a life that a lot of people can't even aspire to. They can't even dream of it because of what they bring home every day, right? So that's why I'm saying don't take that stuff personally with them, because
Oh yeah, no, I don't. No, I don't take any of it personal. Not even in the at all.
Yeah.
I tell people that I've been a single parent. I've been in a battered relationship. So it's not like it's not like I haven't had certain experiences. But even within that, I always knew there were these things to do. My grandparents always took us on road trips. My mom always tried, you know what I mean? So even in my darkest of days, I knew
Yes.
there were alternatives out there. So I think that's what's disturbing, that it seems as though people don't even know there's a possibility of something different. So that's what weighs heavy at times.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Nay is here. I'm going to let her in. I have
Okay.
not met her. So
Okay.
okay. So we're both going to be in the same space at the same time. All right. Here we go. Hey, hey! Good
Good
morning,
morning.
my darling. How are you? I can't hear you.
She's muted.
You were muted. You were muted. Can speak to me now, Nay? Let me see. Uh-oh. I just lost her. All right, I'll just wait until she comes back in. In the meantime, when I see her again, I'll put this in. Let me introduce Because Cherie, you're in here, and we just started talking. Cherie
I,
Syphax is a mother,
hey,
wife, entrepreneur, podcast host, and co-owner of Booker's Restaurant and Bar in West Philadelphia. As we talk about, she talks increasingly about Black marriages and what that means. You were muted. I just wanted to. You were muted. You
now
were.
remember, was it last week or the week before that I tried to get on and I was muted and I had to get
Yeah.
on? I used my
I couldn't
other.
even see you. I would click for you to come in, and then you just disappeared. So let me
That's
see
what.
if I. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can let her back in now and see what happens. All right. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Good
Success. I
morning.
can hear you.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, sweetie pie. How are
Good
you?
morning. I am amazing. How are you all?
We're good. This is
Wonderful.
Cherie Syphax. She does a Love Is segment with me every Thursday. I just told her like 20
Hi.
minutes ago you were coming on.
Hi. So happy to be here.
Oh, I
Thank you
cannot
guys
wait
so
for
much.
them. I cannot wait for them to hear your story. So let me
Oh,
introduce you to the people. Do you pronounce your name
okay.
Nay or Nye?
Nye.
Nye. Nye
Yes, ma'am.
Andrews is an author, speaker, and podcast host known for boldly confronting the hard truths most people are too scared to whisper. Your book, her debut memoir, Diary of a Preacher's Kid, is a raw and unfiltered look at spiritual abuse, survival, and the messy road to healing. Uh, 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 Welcome to the Love Is segment.
Thank you for having
You're
me.
so welcome.
Thank you
I
so
put
much.
out a thing on Facebook and I said, I'm looking for people who are preachers' children, right? And Jai, why am I having a problem this morning?
Jay.
Jay,
Jay.
Nay and
Yes,
Jay.
ma'am.
Jay
Yes, ma'am.
Jay tagged you, and I
Yes.
began having a conversation with you back. And the more we talked backstage on Messenger, the more I was like, oh, you've got to come on and talk to the people. So
Yes,
say
ma'am.
good morning to Cherie, and then we'll get going.
Good morning, Cherie. How are you, darling?
I am well. I'm so looking forward to hearing your story. So,
Yeah,
for sure, as
yeah,
one who
yeah.
grew
Thank
up in a
you.
very structured religious environment as well. So,
Oh my
definitely.
goodness, yes. Oh, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be
Yes,
so
what is
fun.
it?
It's gonna be so fun.
So tell people, start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, and
Okay.
what was it like? What is it like being a preacher's kid?
Okay. So in my book, I start off with saying that growing up as a preacher's kid was actually it was pretty fun. It was pretty lit. It's a different experience when your parents, family have such great ties into the community, right? They know everyone. It seems like they know everything. So when they are so heavily involved in the church and so heavily involved with the community, it causes people to believe and think that they can do no wrong, right? It's
Mhm.
almost this ideal versus this idea of perfection. And a lot of times, preachers' kids are known to be an extension of their parents' ministry
Yes.
and their parents' calling, as opposed to being able to have their own individuality, right? And so, growing up as a preacher's kid, it was always I guess, thought that I would, take over the reins and take over the family ministry in the church. You could not pay me as a teenager to believe that I would be in the season and in the space that I am now, a 33-year-old Black, same gender loving woman.
Hmm.
Uh, get this, who still loves God. Right, who loves
Yes.
God out loud,
Mhm.
and who has learned that God still loves me. And so, learning that um, has catapulted me into unlearning literally everything that I've ever been taught about God, about church, about the
Mhm.
Bible. And so, again, growing up as a preacher's kid, I had a really great childhood, family vacations and trips and allowances. I
Yes,
mean,
I saw
a lot.
that. So let me tell you
Yes.
what that I've been reading your memoir. I literally just got your memoir in Kindle, and
I
I was
love
like,
it.
holy camole! Because right up until 15, I mean, you were in church Monday Bible study, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yes.
By the time you got to
Yes.
Sunday, church started. Church wouldn't end until 6 o'clock in the evening if church was
Yes.
really good. And then everybody came to your family house after church, and there was hog maws and this and that, and you had everything that you needed. So you were
Yes, ma'am.
living the life. When
Yes,
did
ma'am.
that shift and change for you? And
That
did you always
shifted.
know? So one more question. When did that shift and change? And when did you know that you were same gender loving? Because I need to know how that
Oh,
worked out with your father and your mother.
oh, Miss Sanders, you are in my business, darling. Okay, so I'll answer the second question first. And so
Mhm.
I had an idea about being same gender loving when I was about 9 or 10, but I didn't know for sure until I was about 15 or 16. I was a junior in high school.
Mhm.
And when I say 9 or 10, I remember distinctively, my cousins and I were in the family den watching The Color Purple. And you all know that scene when Suge and
And
Siri,
Sealy.
they have
Hmm.
they have that little bathtub scene,
Hmm.
and I was unusually interested,
Hmm.
but I felt bad about being interested because I knew what I had been taught, right? And so,
Hmm.
because it was my home and this was my family, cut it off. We don't watch that in holiness. We're all
Hmm.
gonna go to hell, even just for watching it.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
once I got into high school, there was a young lady who I liked a little bit more than I thought I should, and she was just this beautiful young woman. I loved the way she carried herself. She was very bold, and I found myself, I just could not stop thinking about this girl. And
Mhm.
I remember talking to a friend of hers who was already same gender loving, and
Mhm.
I was like, I have a crush on her, but I think this is bad. And she was like, I grew up in the church. I don't think it's bad. F what the
Mhm.
church is saying. And that was my introduction mentally, where I was like, I like girls, but I couldn't say anything. I couldn't go home and say, Mom, Dad, I have a crush on a girl. So I remember I came out to my school guidance counselor and I told him.
Yeah, that's usually
Mhm.
what happens, right? That
Yeah.
children who are same gender loving comes out to somebody other than their families, and when you juxtapose that with being in the church where you spend so much time, how did
Hmm.
that go over with your father and mother? When did they recognize that you were same gender loving? And Cherie, I'm going to let you jump in there and ask a couple questions of yourself. Okay, all right.
They knew at around the same time that I knew, about 15 or 16, and they knew because they found, back in the day, darlings,
Mhm.
the children used to like to write letters in school. Hey, do you
Yeah.
like me? Do you not? And so I've always had brain fog, right? I mean, I'm 33 years old, and sometimes I forget if my neck is attached to my shoulders. Okay, and so I that's always been since I was a child, and so I always forgot to take my notes out of my pocket, burn them, throw it in the trash, leave it at school. And so my womb carrier, you guys will hear, I do not refer to my biological parents as my mother or my father. My mother is my womb carrier, and my father is my sperm donor.
She'll tell you why
My
in a minute.
Yes, I will. My
Hmm.
womb carrier was doing laundry and came across a letter that I had written to one of the girls at the school. And
Hmm.
that's how they found out. How they handled it was they called a meeting with the school, and they called a meeting with the principal, the vice principal, and the guidance counselor that I had came out to. And they were threatening a lawsuit because the guidance counselor I came out to was a man, and they did not feel like it was appropriate for me as a young woman to be having sexual conversations, is what they called it, with an older man. So
So
that's
instead of
kind of how.
addressing the issue of the fact that you were
Hmm.
same gender loving,
Hmm.
they gaslit the school.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely.
That's what the
Me
children
and
would
the
say. They
school.
gaslit the school and the fire.
Yes,
So
and
what happened as a direct result of that?
I was told to no longer speak to the guidance counselor. Of course, there wasn't anything that the school could do because they didn't do anything wrong.
Mhm.
They could not control the school, but up until 27 years old, they were able to control me. And so, after having the conversation at the school, there was a lot of prayer, a lot of fasting, a lot of behind the scenes. You're not gay. This is wrong. You don't have a reason to be gay because there's nothing going on negatively in your life. You go to church, you have a two-parent home, you get whatever you want. Usually, people who are gay are having these really terrible sexual experiences where they're being raped or they're being molested or sexually abused.
Fix your face,
Uh,
Cherie. Fix your face, Cherie, because my face is going on. My face is going down the same path. Just fix your face.
but the gag is those things were happening at home, and I just believe that they were just in denial about that. Yeah.
What made you, and then Cherie, I'm going to stop and you ask a question because I see your face. What made you change from calling them mom and dad to your womb carrier and your sperm donor?
I became a mother. I became a parent. And I believe as parents, we have the ultimate grace and responsibility to protect and care for our children.
Mm,
And it is just my opinion. This is no disrespect to anyone else's thought process. This is just my opinion.
mm,
I believe as a parent, you have a responsibility to take care of and to protect your children,
yeah,
right? And so I have a 3-year-old black chocolate little boy, and I have a 9-month-old gorgeous caramel skin baby girl. And my wife and I have been married for 6 years, together for 7. And I have literally kissed the ground that this woman has walked on. But never, ever in this world, there's no circumstance that will allow me to know that my wife is or has done anything negatively sexually abusive to our children, and I choose her over my kids. Absolutely not. No,
mm,
no. And so my womb carrier carried me in her womb, and I have the greatest appreciation to her for that. But it stops there. My sperm donor, his sperm is responsible for my here being, and I will ever be grateful. Notice I didn't say I will forever have respect, because that is
mhm,
gone, but I will forever be grateful and appreciative for the catalyst in which God has decided for me to be here.
yeah.
I am grateful for that.
Are you willing to share what happened to you? Why you
Absolutely.
got
Yes,
here?
ma'am.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so in my book, it starts off very, I had a great childhood, right? And then I just kind of walk you down from great childhood to uh, shaking the tables a little bit, right? And
Yeah.
so at the age of 15, it was 4th of July weekend, right before I turned 2 weeks before I turned 16. And I remember we were sitting in my sperm donor's his man cave, in the basement of our townhome. It was a fully finished basement, so it wasn't anything like a Lifetime movie, creepy kind of thing. But we were sitting in the basement watching TV, I think VH1. Something was going on in VH1, probably like Behind the Music or something like that. And we were sitting and talking. And anybody who knew me up until that point, I was always daddy's girl, right? My sperm donor was, he could do no wrong in my eyes ever. And so we're just laying down, and I was, at first I was sitting on his lap, but then we had laid down on this big swivel brown chair, and we're laying down and we're watching TV, and he's drinking a glass of wine, and he got me a glass of wine, which was not unusual during that time. Even though I was 15, my he would do it often, so to me it was normal. And we're sitting down and we're drinking wine, and somewhere between um, consciousness and sleepfulness, he touched me. I remember I had on a short sleeve one piece echo red one piece short set, and I remember he unzipped it, and I'm thinking maybe I'm just in the middle of like this really crazy dream. And so I remember, zipping it back up, and then I remember him unzipping it again, and then that is when my first recollection of my first touch came from, at the hands of my biological father.
Before we go any further, I just want to make you all
Hmm.
aware that this could be triggering to some of you because there are many people who are grown folks who have been abused, sexually abused by a
Hmm.
parent or a family member. So if that is
Hmm.
you, I just want you to hold your heart in, and if it's too much, then stop. Please, just stop watching right now. I thought
Hmm.
it was important for her to share her story, and I didn't know this. When we first started talking, we were just talking about being a
Hmm.
preacher's kid, and as we
Yeah.
began sharing, she said, "I just want you to know I'm saying to you." I said, "Girl, that ain't nothing but a chicken wing. We fine. Everything we do, what we over here, we love all relationships. We're not fighting with anybody about what they think or believe." And I find it interesting. The part that hurt me, and I just want to let you
Hmm.
know the part that hurt me personally in all of this, as I began
Yes,
reading
ma'am.
your story, was
Hmm.
that your mother didn't protect you.
Hmm.
I literally started to cry and put the Kindle book down. Because in
Mm.
all of her saying, I got you, I got you, and that she knew your father had done this before, based on
Hmm.
her response to what he did to you, The thought that being in the church and keeping up appearances, now stop me when I'm wrong, please. The
Mhm.
thought that being in the church and keeping up appearances and not letting people know what was going on is where she just let you go.
Mhm.
She just literally let you go and had you in the same house with your father, with the
Mhm.
stuff that was going on. And it was like nothing much ado about nothing.
Mhm.
What is a lesson that you want to talk to mothers and fathers about? Because sometimes it's the mother that's the sexual predator. What is
Mhm.
the lesson you want to talk to parents about in protecting their children?
Whew. I would say that we are all we are all gifts from God, right? And everything that God does is perfect. Even if we are not, we are still made in his image and after his likeness, right? And the greatest responsibility that we can be given is anything that God gives us. When God put Adam in the Garden of Eden, he gave him a responsibility to both dress it and keep it. What happens with parents, especially in this day and age with society and social media and socioeconomic norms and all of these other um, ideas, are that as parents, we are so quick to dress our children, but we do a very terrible job at keeping our children. And so, the same way that you want to be kept, the same way that you want to be cared for and protected, you have that responsibility and beyond. Because at some point, your child is going to grow up. And when they grow up, they're going to be able to make their own decisions. And you want them to be able to say, my mom, my dad, they weren't perfect, but I always felt safe. I always felt protected. I always felt loved. I always felt the love of God. And as a child, I did not know what the love of God was. I knew what I was taught, but I'm in a season and in a space in my life right now at 33 years old, being the same gender Black queer woman with a wife of 6 years and two children, where I am dividing biblical literalism versus biblical literacy. And I'm learning that a lot of what we have been taught, particularly in the Black church, has been biblical literalism, where we take the word of God, we take the text, we take that which is written, and it is very specific, right? So there's a scripture in the Bible that says, if your eye offends you, pluck it out, right? And then you have people out here with eye patches because they think that that is what the word actually means without taking into consideration the historical, the cultural, the socio-economical context of that time, right? And so I think if we get into a space of teaching the love of God the way that He intends for it to be taught, we wouldn't have so many parents living in shame. And here's the thing, a lot of parents who don't protect, they do it based on what they believe the Bible says.
Yeah.
Wives, you are to honor your husband. Even biblically, it is written, you have your husband, you have the wife, and then you have the children. So they feel like they are doing something wrong if they don't honor that hierarchy. But patriarchy and the Bible really go hand in hand. But what I'm learning is that everything that is biblical is not godly. And if we
Mm.
really start taking time to honor what is godly versus just what is black and white in the text, we will love better and we will parent better. So, my call to action to mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, cousins, aunties, uncles, grandparents, um, if you love God the way that you say you do, you will first protect, because that's what God does for us.
Charmaine, I'm so sorry, honey. She says, "Yes, I see me in you, my sister." There are people who are talking about it, and someone just texted me and said, "Good morning." So a woman called the radio yesterday saying that a pastor at Deliverance Church in Philadelphia molested her son since he
Mm-hmm.
was young, and her son had a breakdown and was in the hospital, and she was told to give it to God. Blew my
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens way more than we ever want to discuss. And I know this is a heavy topic, but we need to go
Mm-hmm.
there. This is the love is segment. We need to
Mm-hmm.
talk about the things that matter. Sherry, I'm gonna let you get in because otherwise I'll just keep asking her a bunch of questions. Do you have any thoughts or questions for her?
Well, so I had certain thoughts initially, and then she kind of came with more information. And you know, and thank you for sharing your story.
Of course.
It's always challenging having these conversations, but it seems like you've gotten to a healthy place. So
Yes.
congratulations on that,
Thank
your
you.
beautiful family. You
Thank you.
know, because when you were calling your mom a womb carrier, I was like, ooh, that's a little rough. And obviously, you got to that other parts because I do believe whether people are people that are raised in religious households or are convicted and committed to religious ideologies and practices, they do believe that they're doing the right thing. I think that was the thing I had to get to with my mother. She believed she was doing the right thing. Where the difference is, and what my experience was with yours was, my mother was fiercely protective of me, almost too much, almost too protective, almost like, don't go out, they're going to rape, don't go out, they're going to do this, don't go out, you know. So I can understand how there was that departure if you felt unprotected. The other thing is so interesting how a lot of religious folks want to pray the gay away and all that, but then they're touching you inappropriately. I often wonder, how do they reconcile that? You know, that is really interesting to me, like how one can reconcile that and vilify you and not vilify the predator. Um, and that's something that I can't wrap my head around. And as a child growing up and living in that household, I'd be curious, which is how you felt.
Yes.
Um, how did that interaction continue? Did you tell someone? Like, how did that work out?
So your first question, as a child, how did I feel? Unprotected. I felt that love was performative.
Mm,
And a great reason for that was because I grew up in purity culture. I just spoke about this on my podcast maybe 2, 3 weeks ago, right? So we know that purity culture was bred through white and evangelicalism, right?
mm,
And so I'm not trying to make this a racial thing, but it's like the white man tells us what God is or what the Bible says, and then
Mhm.
black
Mhm.
people we feel like we have to compete with that, and
Mhm.
not only do we have to compete with that, but we have to embrace that, and then we teach it even more dogmatic than they did, right? And so
Yes.
growing up
mm-hmm,
in purity culture, young black men and women, particularly young black women, were taught that your body belongs to God first, and then your father, and then your husband. And so growing up in that, on top of what my sperm donor was teaching from the pulpit about purity, about, girls don't have sex and all of that, even though I knew that what he was doing was wrong, in my mind, I'm like, okay, in my heart, I'm like, okay, this is wrong. But in my mind, I'm like, well, if my body belongs to God first and then my
My
father, well,
father
maybe
said.
this is his way of
mm,
either protecting me, or maybe this is his way of introducing me to what's going to happen later on down the road. I knew it was wrong, but when we have thought processes and perceptions, I'm a firm believer that you can only think as far as your exposure and or your experience,
Yes.
right?
yes.
The issue is that exposure and experience does not always correlate, right? I can say I grew up and I knew a couple of crackheads, right? That may have been my exposure, but I've never experienced smoking crack, right? You understand what I'm saying? And so
Mm-hmm.
with that, I just believe that a lot of our perceptions and the way that we perceive things is just based on, again, either our exposure or our experience. And so because of what I was exposed to, based on the teachings that I was exposed to, that experience seemed to kind of go hand in hand with
Hand.
that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to your question of, is it something that continued? Yes, I was sexually abused by my father. My first recollection was 2 weeks before my 16th birthday, 4th of July weekend, up until my mid 20s, because I didn't leave home until 27.
So I didn't get that far because I started to cry when I realized your mother wasn't protecting you.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
but the question then becomes, how did they justify continuing to do this? How did your mother justify your father continuing to touch you and molest you
That's what,
when you were going to church and, calling down hell and fire and brimstone on the folks through the word of God? How did they justify? No, I'm not serious. Not serious.
no,
Seriously,
for real.
I told you this
Yeah,
is so. Listen, it's a good
yes,
question, right? How
I
did
love
they
it.
do
Yeah.
that while coming home and doing that to you? How did they? What did they tell themselves
because
that made this
because
okay?
right, and because even
Mm-hmm.
if you were unclear about what was right and wrong
They were.
because of those biblical trainings, they were not.
Yeah.
Of course.
Even if he was the perpetrator, your mom was clear on what's right and wrong. So yes, what did that dynamic? How'd you guys navigate that?
We didn't. I did.
Okay.
As it relates to the justification, um, I really believe that my sperm donor thought that he was God or some sort of
Mm.
variation of
Mm-hmm.
God.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not his. I don't classify myself as a victim anymore, because God truly has, with his love and with community, my wife, my children, has really helped me get to this point to be on platforms such as this and be able to speak about it, right?
Yes.
But my sperm donor did a really good job at grooming everybody around him, whether it was grooming them sexually, financially. I remember there was
Stop
Mm-hmm.
for a
it was
second. Stop for one
yes,
second. Are
yes,
you
ma'am.
telling me your father, your sperm donor, was grooming and sexually molesting other people?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Oh yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But a
Mm.
lot of this, okay. So here's the thing. I have to rewind. Um, I found out 9. I was 29, getting ready to turn 30. I was pregnant with my son. I was estranged from my grandmother on my womb carrier
Oh,
side.
hold on. Wait, no.
Um,
Wait a minute.
yes,
Wait a
ma'am.
minute. When did this
Yes,
come in?
ma'am.
Your wife had the children. Oh my goodness.
Yes. So,
So
oh
you
yeah.
gave birth to the
Yes,
Listen,
yes.
we in
So
here trying to
yes.
catch up on all the things. Well, all the things. Okay.
Okay. So yeah. So I gave birth to my son, and my wife gave birth to our daughter, and our children. They have the same donor, so they are related by love, and then they are also blood related. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So you did not. Okay. So you did not. You were
No,
not
I
part
knew she wasn't
of
having
the.
sex with a man. I
Oh, okay.
knew it
I was
was some
like,
kind of donor. Because
Greg can't give me
I
last
taught the
minute.
same,
Yes, I need
I
some
taught the same,
research so I can
yeah,
prepare.
yeah. I taught the same gender couples all the time, and particularly men. And they're like, we have women who are willing to be our our donors, our egg donors. So I've had those conversations. I
Yes.
immediately knew how those babies came about. But,
Let me tell you
but thanks
something.
for
Y'all
asking.
see these nails?
Sometimes.
Baby,
Yeah.
I am a lady. Y'all see that? A lady, honey.
Yes, look at you.
But let me know, and let me say this, because a lot of times in the church they would try to force relationship, what is considered natural
That is true.
relationships.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so it could have been a possibility where they were like, Miss Jenkins' son is a good, son, and trying to force
Put you together,
what
yeah.
this couple
Absolutely.
looks like, because what your representation is different than what they believe, right? And
Right.
if you're trying to have something look a certain way, you absolutely can try to influence and force a
Yes.
relationship.
You're right,
So
Cherie. You're right.
yeah,
And as a direct result, that's why we see so many people married to the opposite sex. Meanwhile, they're same gender loving. And it continues to happen today because they're
Woo,
pleasing.
correct,
They're pleasing
woo.
whoever it is in
correct.
their families and not wanting folks to know. I told you, Ms. Andrews, I
Mm,
done told you this was going to be a good
please,
conversation.
please
So,
bring me back for a part 2 for
oh, we
that,
will.
because
We
that,
absolutely will. We will,
huh,
because I'd love to discuss that
huh.
part. I had that conversation with a counselor, a therapist last week, and I said, "Why are so many people marrying the opposite sex when they're same gender loving?" He said, "Oh, we gonna go there today." I said, "Oh yeah, we gonna go there." And he began talking about the family. What's going on? Why do people feel like they have to hide in this thing? So I applaud you for not allowing all the stuff you had gone through, all the circumstantial things to make you go, I'm just going to go be with a man and make everybody happy.
Right.
So I applaud you for that. But you got to get back to the place where your father, your sperm donor, because I'm going to go with your wishes. Your sperm donor was molesting other people. Were they in the church too?
them were. Yes, most of them were. So what I was getting to was at 29, going on 30, I was pregnant with my first child. I did not have a relationship with my grandmother on my womb carrier side. We were estranged since I was maybe 12, 13. And she, took them to court, tried to get full custody of me. She lost. Then she took them to court and she took them for grandparents' rights and lost. And so once she lost both of those cases, I was not allowed to talk to her. She was not allowed to talk to me. There were no more family dinners, cookouts, anything like that. And so
But
I
why
did
were they
not.
trying to take you when you were 12? What did she know that made her try to take you at 12?
Right.
She knew what he had done to other young women, and she was trying to get me before it happened to me. So she didn't know that it was happening, but she had a very good idea that it was going to happen just based on his history and his pattern. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I bring that up to say when I moved to North Carolina when I was 27, got pregnant at 29. When I moved to North Carolina, my grandmother did try to establish a relationship with me, but I have been told so many negative things about her character and about the things or about the way that she was trying to break up our family dynamic. I didn't really have anything for her. It wasn't until I had spoken to my aunt and my cousin, and they were like, I think you should give her a chance. There's a lot that you don't know. And so when I spoke to my grandmother, I said, listen, I recognize that I have created my own family or am creating my own family. I said, but at the end of the day, there's so much in my bloodline that I don't know about. And so I need to know what I need to pray on, pray over, because I am birthing a child through this bloodline. And there's a lot that I don't know about it outside of the fact that my father's a predator. That's all I know. And she said, I always knew this conversation was coming. The second thing out of her mouth was, your father molested my youngest daughter when she was 7 years old and then groomed her from the age of 17 to 29.
Wow.
And she said, and it wasn't just her. And she started naming people that used to babysit me, naming people who I thought, oh, this is my god sister. I have a god sister now. She is in her 40s. To my knowledge, she was groomed by my sperm donor from 13 up until now. She still lives in a house, allegedly has had two children by him. He has a son who is in his 20s through an affair through another young lady in the church that he groomed from when she was a teenager. Now they're best friends. The dynamic I grew up in a cult. I can laugh about it now while you all are catching your breath, but I am very convinced that I grew up in a cult because the way he is able to use God and his own influence to get people to do things and to get his wife, even to get my womb carrier to accept certain things, it should be studied. I'm pretty sure it has been, but someone needs to go specifically and study
Okay, so can we
Yeah.
agree that she comes back next Thursday, Cherie, to finish this conversation? No, seriously, because we don't have enough time, enough Jesus, enough tea, enough eye bulging to get through this in one conversation.
I will
So
be
let me see if I
honored.
get this right. The woman that you were talking to is your grandmother from your mother's side, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that was your mother's mother. He was
Yes, ma'am.
molesting one of her sisters. How
Yes,
did
her
she
baby
end up
sister.
marrying? How did she end up marrying him, knowing that her mother knew that he was molesting her sister?
So here's the thing. I'm not justifying it because I don't know. But what I
Yes.
do know is that when you grow up in certain spaces, especially as young Black women, you just want to get out of the house, right? And so anybody and anything looks good. Now, it is important to note my sperm donor womb carrier, they met at 12, started dating at 15, 16, got married at 18. I'm their firstborn by the time they were 21. I'm not justifying her choices, but I am saying that my sperm donor is the only experience of love outside of the home that she grew up in that she's ever known. He's been very powerful, and he has been able to um uh, you know how they say a mind is a terrible thing to waste, or how the word says and be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, if you have someone telling you that this is the way your mind should be renewed, then they have a way and a right.
That's narcissism at the highest. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this high. Everybody's asking. It's Alexander said this is a podcast. Truly, they're asking: is your sperm donor still preaching? Say no. Say no.
No, no.
Is he still preaching?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. You know, that is an example of how influential the church can be. And
Yes.
unfortunately, when someone chooses to use it for bad, it can be so impactful. Not to take it to politics, but that's why the fact that that ideology is at the root of some of our political structure right now.
Yes.
It is the foundation of our political structure
Yes.
right now. Absolutely,
Because
yes.
that Christian nationalism, all that thought process and ideology is what has spearheaded this administration, and that to me is very, very scary because it's very influential, and it's very right wing in a sense of it's over the top.
Yes.
As far as what the belief is of who belongs and who doesn't belong, who should be protected,
Absolutely.
who shouldn't be protected, and and all that stuff. And so that is why, to me, that is so much more negatively impactful to kind of our country right now. It really is.
Absolutely. Which takes me back to what I said earlier about biblical literacy versus biblical literalism.
Yes.
And if
I
people
love when
really
you
took
said
the
that
time,
everything that's biblical is not godly.
no, not at all. You know what I'm learning?
And everyone can interpret. It can all be interpreted
In a
in a
thousand
way
ways.
that justifies actions. It can
But
all be interpreted.
the unfortunate part is a lot of our interpretation is only based on what we have been exposed to.
Correct.
Or what we want people to believe when we have the kind of power from the pulpit. So imagine, I'm assuming your sperm donor has never been charged with any crime because because he's the man of God. Touch
Right.
not my anointing, do my prophet no harm. Does that sound familiar to
Absolutely.
you?
Absolutely. But they quote that, but then they forget that we are God's anointed too.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But I mean, it's old. I mean, when I think, every time we go over to the continent, when we talk about the Dutch and the British and all those that colonized us, and then brought us to this country, it was all around that biblical thoughts and of who is superior and who is inferior, and interpreting the scripture so that we stayed in an inferior position, and as if nothing in the Bible around us being superior was applicable to us. So again, it's all interpreted to for an objective to and we still are under that. Like,
oh yes,
we are still under that.
yeah.
I'm just so yeah. Wow, this has been yeah.
I know.
Go back to one thing, and no. I just want to, because I want to be clear. Like, something was said earlier about you lived a certain life, you had a 2-parent household, you hadn't been molested. And this may be ignorant on my part. Are there studies that show that people, are, whether it's non-binary or trans or same same sex or whatever, has it been proven that they've been sexually molested? Does the data drive that? Because
I don't
I'm not aware of that.
No, because she said that she had those feelings. She was the first recollection was around 9. She was not being molested at that point, right?
Right. So
Right.
So I just want to make sure, because that was stated, and I want to be clear that we're not advocating
I don't
that
I
is
don't
a
believe
catalyst
that.
or a reason why people have a lifestyle.
Oh no, I don't believe that at all. It is something that I will tell you that thought process or that think piece is something that I have only heard in the church. I don't know if you all remember a few years ago, Kiara Sheard was under fire for that.
Yes.
And then so was
Yes.
Kim Burrell. She was also under fire for that. But I have same gender loving family friends who were never sexually abused or never
Yeah.
sexually
Okay.
assaulted.
So I
Now,
wanted to make sure. Yeah. I just
now
wanted to
to be
make sure.
fair,
Mhm.
I do know of both men and women who have been sexually abused, and they say, let's say you have a woman who was sexually abused by men, say, "Oh, I will never date a man, I will never trust a man." But
Hmm.
then they're not always gay. You know, sometimes they
Right.
just choose to never get married or never to,
Hmm.
you know, have certain relationships. But
Hmm.
the dynamic between sexual abuse and same gender love. Um, I think it's something that the church made up, but don't quote me on it. I don't know that it is data driven, but I do know that it is not something that I subscribe to.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
So we're going to have you back. Monica says, listen, I have been very quiet through this because I am both triggered and intrigued. My God, wow. Right?
Mhm.
Someone
Wow.
else will 1 in 5
Wow.
people are sexually molested. It is incredible. We talk about protecting your children. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. And thank you so much for your transparency. Thank you for trusting me and this platform to come and
Thank
share your
you.
story. I told you you
Thank
would be
you.
safe here. I don't play those
Yes,
games,
ma'am.
right? I want to
No,
make sure
ma'am.
that whoever we interview is interviewed well, make sure that they're able to share their story openly and
Yes, ma'am.
transparently, and we treat you with love and dignity. That will always be a space here. Now, let me say this in closing for me. I have
Mm-hmm.
said this over and over again. People say, Andrea, you church hop. Our spirit of discernment is incredibly strong. If I look
Mm-hmm.
up at you on the stage and I see all this darkness around you, I'm not staying in your church because what happens
Absolutely.
is
Mhm.
that darkness then seeps into the people. I've heard church people say some things that
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, wait, what? Where's that coming from? And
Right.
so I finally found a space. Like I've pastors who are, pretending to be to I can't even. Because if I start talking, they're gonna know that I know.
That you know,
And
yes,
so,
ma'am.
yeah, that I know, right? And so,
Right.
and when you're out here bashing gay people, but you're living a whole different life. Because see, these streets talk. Hear what I'm telling you?
Mhm.
And I get the call like, did you know Pastor so and so was at such and such with such and such doing such and
Mm-hmm.
such?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, I'm not surprised, but thank you for sharing and move right along because I'm not getting into the
Right.
discussion with anybody about it. But we have
Right.
got to, I tell people all the time, if you're going to read the Bible and decipher the Bible and discern the Bible, read your damn concordance, right? Know what each
Mm-hmm.
thing is as you're going through, and even then it's subject to interpretation. So
Mhm.
the bottom line is love people as you would love yourself. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. Treat people well no matter what their station in life is. Period.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Absolutely.
I
Mhm.
agree.
And if we have to stop and knee bow when you walk into the room, if we have to stop and honor the man of the cloth, if we have to wear our dresses down to our ankles, don't get me started in these Wakandan streets. You show up in the way you love people. I
Okay.
am coming into your church if I see you're loving people. They don't have to be you have to be a member of the church for us to take care of you in the community. Come join the church and pay your tithes. We have got to have this conversation more transparently. And for those who are so
Absolutely.
locked in that they can't see the forest for the trees, all I can do is pray for you. All I can do is pray for you. You just opened up a can of worms with me because I think I was
Mhm.
holding on to this in terms of
I
this
see.
for a
Let it
long
out.
time.
Let it
Right. I mean,
out.
and because when we go back to our country of origin, that does not exist.
How about that? So it was brought to us and forced upon us, and
For
then
a
we took it.
reason.
And a lot of folks, this is why the Catholic Church went through as much as it went through. They were hiding
Mm-hmm.
all these priests
Mm-hmm.
who were molesting these boys. In the Black
Mm-hmm.
church, which we don't want to talk about because we believe, God forbid, that these things could or should not happen, this is what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. So for you to really come out and have the dialogue, I'm so stinking proud of you, A. B, I need your book to sell like hotcakes. Tell them what
Oh
the
my
book is
God.
and where they can find it, please.
Thank you. So my book is Diary of a Preacher's Kid. You can find it on Amazon. The hardcover copy is $19.99, and then you can get the Kindle ebook version. I believe it's $9.99, if I'm
Yeah,
not
it's nine
mistaken.
ninety nine. Yeah,
Yes,
Diary of a Preacher's Kid. It's called Diary
yes.
of a Preacher's Kid. Autumn says,
Yes.
oh, Autumn is on here. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for sharing. Hey, Autumn, darling, happy birthday. I know you had a birthday recently. So Diary of a Preacher's Kid, it's on
Yes.
Amazon. I need you all to, if you
Yes.
know somebody who was being molested, if you suspect somebody's being molested, if you suspect somebody's being indoctrinated by the church, send them this thing. Okay, send them Diary of a Preacher's Kid. Everybody needs to read a copy of this. I need this thing to be made into a television show, truly.
But let's also recognize the balance of churches were safe spaces for us in time, and we
And
still
continues to be, Cherie.
wonder. That's what I was going to say.
So,
We
so,
still
so I'm all for the balance, right? But we
but,
spend a lot of time.
but to your point, there's a lot going on
Yes.
of behavior that is negatively impacting our communities and needs to be called out, and we need to just make sure that we're not supporting
Right.
that.
And quite frankly,
Absolutely.
let me say this. If people have to feel like, but not everybody, yeah, but not every Black person is a thief. Now, we're just dealing with the incidences as they happen.
Correct.
So I don't need to tell you that it's not everybody in the church. I'm in Enon right now because I really care about how the people are treated, et cetera, doing what I'm supposed to do. But not every, we have to start calling out. And Pastor Walter does it all the time. He says, some of y'all Negroes should not be in the pulpit. He said it openly and transparently. So come on, we've got to get to a place where, because lives are being changed. We change lives when we open up and spill the secrets.
Yes. Yep.
Now I'm going to privately ask you where your father is preaching, your sperm donor is preaching. I'm not going to go that publicly. Listen, he may not have a member left in the church by the time we'll. Huh?
I said, and I will tell you.
Thank you.
We will ride at dawn.
Yeah. Because Black people, the way we're feeling right now, we be like, oh, wait, really? That's what we're doing? We ride at dawn. You are absolutely right. Listen, y'all, I see.
So
go ahead, honey.
I just want to acknowledge very quickly what Miss is it Miss Sherry? Miss Cherie? I want to make sure I pronounce.
Yes.
Cherie, what you said, that there are some safe spaces in the church. I am now a part of another ministry. My family and I just got kicked out of a church at the end of December. But within the last 6 months, we have been under watch care. And then we recently joined this ministry under the tutelage of Archbishop Freddie Bernard Marshall here in Greensboro, North Carolina. And so I bring that up to say that even through all of my experiences, I have never given up on
wavered
God.
from God. Yes.
Never. But also, B, I have learned my book was birthed through this. My podcast was birthed through this. Ministry also happens. You all are doing it now. Ministry happens outside of the four walls of the church. And another thing that I am learning in ministry and with everything that God has allowed me to not just survive, but conquer, everything that He has allowed me to get through, is that we have to be careful not to be so loud about things that Jesus didn't even whisper about. Thank you guys for having me. I would love to come back next week.
We have got to be careful about being so loud about things that Jesus didn't even whisper about. Lord, I thank you. Thank you all so much. I got to start my day. Cherie, child, be ready for next week, honey. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for trusting us.
Yeah,
we love you. We don't know you, but we love you.
I love you guys. Thank you.
We love you. This episode of Mornings with Marva is officially over. Don't forget, I'm not on the air tomorrow, y'all. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Ooh, baby. Ooh.
Cherie Spiegler, you have 2 unheard messages and 4 saved messages. First, unheard message from telephone number 26052933167. 973